This dance means nothing. Her words were calm, almost careless, yet they landed between them like a challenge. The grand ballroom glittered around her, crystal chandeliers raining light, silk gowns whispering across polished marble, violins breathing life into the air. But for a single heartbeat, everything stilled. The Duke of Ashbourne did not release her hand. Instead, he pulled her closer. "Then allow it to mean nothing beautifully," he murmured. Lady Eliza Harrington felt the warmth of his palm at her waist and hated how easily her breath faltered. She had promised herself she would never be undone by him again. Not after what he had taken. Not after what he had refused to give. The orchestra swelled, and the dance continued. To the world watching, they were perfection, power and poise wrapped in velvet and silk. The Duke, dark-haired and devastatingly composed, guided her with effortless authority. Eliza followed the steps flawlessly, her chin lifted, her expression serene. No one could see the storm beneath her calm exterior, the memories clawing at her chest with every measured turn. It had been 3 years since she last stood this close to him. 3 years since he had looked at her not as a duchess-in-waiting, not as a suitable match, but as a woman he desired. 3 years since he had chosen duty over her. "Your Grace," she said softly, the formal address a deliberate blade between them. "You should release me. People are staring." "They always stare," he replied. "Tonight is no different. It is very different." His gaze flickered to hers, sharp and knowing. "Because you wish it to be? Because I cannot survive another mistake," she thought. The Duke's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You vanished without a word," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Do you know what that did to me?" Eliza smiled for the audience, though her heart pounded. "You are not entitled to explanations. You made your choice. And you made yours," he countered. "Yet here you are, dancing with me. Because I had no escape," she wanted to say. "Because your name still commands doors to open and people to obey." The ballroom was hosting the Queen's winter masquerade, an event no one of standing could refuse. Eliza had returned to London only weeks ago after years in the countryside, hoping anonymity would protect her. She had been wrong. The moment she entered the hall, masked and cautious, she felt him before she saw him. The Duke of Ashbourne had a presence that bent the air around him, and now he held her as though time itself had conspired to bring them back together. "You left the night my father announced my engagement," he said. "You announced it," she corrected quietly. "Your father merely applauded." His grip tightened. "I was young. So was I." The music slowed, forcing them closer still. Eliza became acutely aware of the steady rhythm of his breathing, the familiar scent of cedar and winter spice. It terrified her how easily her body remembered him, how traitorous her heart could be. "You told me you loved me," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. He did not deny it. That hurt most of all. "I did," he said. "I still." She pulled back slightly, just enough to remind him she was not his to claim. "Do not finish that sentence." "Why?" he asked. "Because it frightens you?" "Because it is useless," she replied. "This dance means nothing. And when the music ends, so do we." The Duke studied her face as though searching for cracks in her resolve. He had once known every expression, every secret thought that passed behind her eyes. Losing that knowledge had cost him more than he would ever confess. "You wear indifference well," he said. "It is learned," Eliza answered. "Like survival." The past rose unbidden in her mind. The stolen glances in candlelit corridors, the letters written and burned, the night he held her beneath the stars and swore he would find a way. She had believed him. That had been her greatest folly. When the Duke announced his engagement to Lady Margaret Whitcomb, Eliza had understood the truth of the world they lived in. Love was a luxury. Titles were obligations. She had left before she could be broken beyond repair. Or so she had thought. The music ended, and polite applause rippled through the hall. The Duke did not release her immediately. For one dangerous moment, she thought he might ignore every watching eye and pull her into the scandal she had spent years avoiding. Instead, he bowed. "Thank you for the dance, my lady," he said formally. Relief and disappointment struck her in equal measure. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. You cannot pretend this means nothing forever. She faced him slowly. Watch me. Eliza disappeared into the crowd, her heart racing, her composure barely intact. She told herself she had won this small battle. She had danced with him and survived. She had not begged, had not broken, had not confessed the truth she carried like a hidden wound. Across the room, the Duke watched her go, his expression carved from stone. For the first time in 3 years, he allowed himself to admit what he had denied every sleepless night. This dance had meant everything, and he would not let her walk away again. Eliza did not stop walking until the cold night air struck her lungs. She pushed through the tall doors of the ballroom and onto the terrace, her gloved hands trembling despite her resolve. London glittered beyond the balustrade, lanterns glowing like distant stars, indifferent to the chaos inside her chest. This was a mistake. Coming back had been a mistake. She had told herself she was stronger now, wiser, that time had dulled the ache and taught her restraint. Yet one dance, one single infuriatingly perfect dance, had undone years of careful discipline. Behind her, music resumed, laughter spilling into the night. He would return to his admirers, his allies, the women who smiled at him with open ambition. He belonged to that world. He always had. You always flee when cornered. The voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Eliza closed her eyes briefly before turning. The Duke of Ashbourne stood a few paces away, his mask removed, his expression unreadable in the soft torchlight. She should have known he would follow. He had never been a man to accept unfinished conversations. "I came for air," she said coolly. "Surely even you can allow me that." "I can allow you anything," he replied, "but I will not allow lies." Her spine stiffened. "Then you should return inside. Lies are far more welcome there." He stepped closer, stopping just short of impropriety. "Tell me why you returned." She laughed softly, without humor. "London does not require permission." "No," he said, "but you do." Eliza met his gaze, refusing to look away. "I return because my aunt is ill, because the countryside is quiet to the point of suffocation, because I wish to remind myself that I am still capable of standing in a room like that without falling apart." "And did you succeed?" Her silence was answer enough. The Duke exhaled slowly, as though reining in a storm. "You vanished. Not a letter. Not a farewell. Do you know how many times I searched for you?" "You were engaged," she said sharply. "I spared us both the humiliation. That engagement was ended." She blinked despite herself. "What?" "Within a year," he continued. "It was never what they wanted it to be, nor what I did." Eliza felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "And you tell me this now, because you deserve to know the truth," he said. "Even if it changes nothing." It changed everything, and nothing at all. "I do not measure my life by your regrets," she said, though her voice wavered. "What is done is done." The Duke studied her, as if she were a puzzle he had once solved and then foolishly abandoned. "You learn to build walls," he said. "They suit you, but they are not you. You presume much. I remember everything." The words struck deeper than she expected. Memory was a dangerous thing. It did not ask permission before resurfacing. Eliza saw herself younger, softer, believing in promises whispered beneath moonlight. She saw him then, too, not the composed Duke before her, but a man torn between duty and desire. "I am not that girl anymore," she said. "Neither am I that man." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unsaid truths. The torches flickered, shadows dancing across stone. Somewhere inside, a glass shattered, followed by laughter. Life went on, cruelly indifferent. "You should not be here with me," Eliza said finally. "If anyone sees—" "Let them," he interrupted. "I'm no longer governed by whispers." "You always were," she replied. "You simply convinced yourself otherwise." His mouth tightened. "And you? Are you governed by fear?" Her breath caught. "By wisdom." He reached out, then stopped himself, his hand falling back to his side. The restraint in that small motion shook her more than any reckless touch could have. "I will not chase you," he said quietly, "but I will not pretend this is meaningless." She turned away, gripping the stone railing. Below, Carriages lined the street like waiting verdicts. "You speak as though meaning is enough," she said. "It never was. For us, it could have been. That is a dangerous illusion." He stepped beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "Tell me something, Eliza. When you left, were you running from me or from yourself?" The question pierced through her defenses. She swallowed. "I was running from heartbreak." "And did it work?" She shook her head once. "No." For a moment, neither spoke. The world seemed to hold its breath. "I loved you," he said again, without embellishment, without demand. "I did not stop because it became inconvenient." She turned to him, anger flaring. "Love that bows to convenience is not love. It is caution dressed as virtue." He accepted the blow without flinching. "Then let me be reckless now." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "You cannot rewrite the past." "No," he agreed, "but we can decide whether it continues to rule us." Footsteps echoed from the doorway. Eliza stepped back instinctively, restoring the distance she had so dangerously allowed to shrink. A lady emerged onto the terrace, pausing when she saw them, curiosity lighting her eyes. The Duke inclined his head politely and moved away, the moment shattered. Eliza watched him go, her emotions a tangled mess of relief, longing, and fury. She had survived the dance, survived the terrace, but survival was not the same as freedom. Later that night, as she lay awake in her guest chamber, the echoes of his words refused to fade. She pressed a hand to her chest, where something fragile and dangerous had begun to stir. Across the city, the Duke stood at his window, staring into the darkness. He had waited 3 years for another chance, and now fate had placed her within reach, changed, guarded, but undeniably still his equal. This was no longer about a dance. It was about everything they had lost, and everything he intended to reclaim. Morning light crept through the tall windows of Eliza's chamber, pale and unwelcome. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the past reached for her with cruel precision. The warmth of his hand, the steadiness of his voice, the way he had spoken her name, as if it were both a promise and a wound. She rose before the household stirred, dressing with careful restraint. Today, she told herself, would be ordinary. She would pay calls, exchange pleasantries, perform the role expected of her. She would not think of the Duke of Ashbourne. It was a lie she repeated until it almost sounded like truth. By noon, London society had already decided otherwise. "Eliza, my dear, you were exquisite last night," Lady Pembroke said over tea, her eyes bright with curiosity thinly veiled as kindness. "And how fortunate, dancing with his grace so early in the evening." Eliza lifted her cup, steady despite the tightening in her chest. "Fortune is a matter of perspective." "Indeed," Lady Pembroke replied, smiling, "though one cannot deny how well you suit each other." The words followed Eliza long after she took her leave. In every drawing room, in every hushed corner, she felt the weight of observation. London remembered. London always did. And London adored a story unfinished. By afternoon, she surrendered to inevitability and stepped in a Hyde Park, hoping the open air would quiet her thoughts. The trees were bare, winter clinging stubbornly to their branches. Carriages rolled past in stately procession, each one a reminder of rank and routine. She did not hear his footsteps until he spoke. "You favor escape routes." She stopped walking but did not turn. "You favor intrusion." The Duke came to stand beside her, hands clasped behind his back, his expression composed. He looked entirely at ease, as though fate had not been rearranging itself around them since the previous night. "I hope you would walk here," he said. "That suggests you hope to meet me." "I did." Eliza faced him at last. "You grow bold. I grow honest." She studied him carefully, searching for cracks, for signs of manipulation or regret dressed as courage. Instead, she found resolve. It unsettled her more than any practiced charm could have. "This is unwise," she said. "Perhaps," he replied, "but I am done living wisely at the expense of truth." "Truth," she echoed, "is rarely kind." "Nor is silence," he countered. They walked together in strained quiet, the gravel crunching beneath their feet. To any observer, they were merely two figures enjoying the winter air. Only Eliza felt the tension coiled tightly between them, fragile and volatile. "I will not ask forgiveness," he said suddenly. "I will not excuse what I did." She stopped again. "Then why pursue this?" "Because I owe you more than absence," he answered. "And because what we had was real." "It was incomplete," she replied. "You loved me in private and abandoned me in public." His breath left him slowly. "I was afraid." She laughed bitterly. "So was I. The difference is, I paid the price alone." He reached for her hand, stopping just short of touching her glove. "You were never alone to me." "But I was alone in the world," she said. "That is what matters." They stood there, exposed by daylight rather than chandeliers, stripped of illusion. Eliza realized then that the past could not be resurrected unchanged. Too much had been lost, too much learned. "What do you want from me now?" she asked quietly. "Time," he said. "Honesty. The chance to prove that I am no longer the man who let you walk away. And if I cannot give you that chance—" He met her gaze without flinching. "Then I will accept it, but I will not pretend indifference." The sincerity in his voice frightened her. Indifference had been her shield. His refusal to offer it left her defenseless. They resumed walking, slower now, the tension easing into something cautiously deliberate. "You never asked why I left," she said after a moment. "I assumed the answer would destroy me." "It nearly did," she replied. "I loved you. Enough to know that staying would turn me into something smaller, something resentful. I chose dignity." His throat tightened. "I wish I had chosen you." "So do I," she said softly. "But wishing does not alter consequence." A familiar voice interrupted them. "Your Grace." Lady Margaret Whitcomb approached, elegant as ever, her smile polite and unreadable. Eliza felt the past collide violently with the present. "Lady Whitcomb," the Duke said evenly. Margaret's gaze flicked to Eliza, curiosity sharpening. "Lady Harrington." "How unexpected." "London excels at surprises," Eliza replied coolly. Margaret's smile deepened, though something calculating lingered behind it. "Indeed. I hope you are enjoying your return." "I am reacquainting myself," Eliza said. The Duke sensed the undercurrent immediately. "I was just leaving," he said. Margaret's brow lifted. "Already?" "Yes," he replied. "I have matters to attend to." He inclined his head to both women and walked away, leaving silence in his wake. Margaret turned fully to Eliza. "You and His Grace seem familiar." "Old acquaintances," Eliza said. Margaret studied her for a moment, then nodded. "London has a long memory. Be cautious which chapters you reopen." Eliza watched her depart, unease settling in her chest. The past was no longer content to remain dormant. It was asserting itself, demanding resolution. That evening, Eliza received a letter. The seal bore the Duke's crest. She held it for a long time before opening it. "I will not corner you again," it read. "But know this, I am here, not as a duke bound by expectation, but as a man willing to face consequence. Whatever you decide, I will respect it. I ask only that you decide with the truth of your heart, not the fear it learned." Her hands trembled slightly as she folded the paper. Fear had shaped her choices once. She had survived because of it, but survival was no longer enough. Across the city, the Duke extinguished the candles in his study, prepared for rejection, prepared for patience. He had set events in motion he could not control, and for the first time, he welcomed the uncertainty. The dance had opened a door neither of them could now ignore. What lay beyond it would demand more than memory. It would demand courage.